Paralympian rower. Thank you very much, Em.
Can you start that again?
Okay, so tonight I'm very excited to have joining us is Joe Bird, who is an ex-Paralympian rower. You may actually know him more as CP Truths from Instagram. He's a complete Instagram sensation, and he
TikTok.
And TikTok. Sorry, thank you, Courtney. And he's come to share with us some of his journey with CP and how it's challenged his physical and mental health. And I'm going to leave the rest of it to him. And I think if you've got questions that you want to ask during the session, if you want to put them in the chat, and then Joe, do you want to take questions as we go along, or should we wait until the end?
I think if I just say my bit, kind of my background, and then kind of what I do to maintain a good level of mental health, and then I'll say kind of I'm open to any questions that you may have afterwards, if that's okay with you.
It's perfect. So if you've got questions that you're thinking of during the chat and you don't want to forget them, just put them in the chat and I can reference back to you for it in time. I'm going to hand over to Joe and say thank you so much for joining us. It's really exciting to have you with us tonight.
My pleasure. My pleasure. So yeah, my name's Joe, obviously. I have cerebral palsy. So the type of cerebral palsy that I have is called spastic diplegia, and it was caused by a brain injury at birth. So I was born about 12 weeks premature, and I'm a twin. So I've got another sister who doesn't have cerebral palsy. So I'm the twin with the disability, which brings its kind of challenges in terms of coping. And I'm going to come on to kind of comparison, and it's quite easy to compare between the two, and I try and avoid that as much as I can with comparison. But yeah, so I have it affects the lower extremities of my body, so that'd be my legs. The majority of it is my legs, and slightly the left arm. So it basically means my muscles are very tight, which affects my kind of movement and my mobility, coordination, balance. So I've made a lot of progress in my life. So I started my life in a wheelchair up until about the age of 6 or 7. Then I progressed onto a frame, and then obviously onto a stick, and then how I am now. Everybody that's seen me on Instagram, I've kind of made a lot of progression during the pandemic. So I spent kind of 14 weeks. I had a lot of spare time because I wasn't working. I spent a lot of time working on myself and working on my strength, my balance. I did a lot of physiotherapy, a lot of strength training. So strength training has been really key to my kind of health in general. And during that time, during the pandemic, it was very difficult to kind of keep myself positive. And it was, it's the same for everybody else. During that time, it was very difficult. And I think exercise for me was definitely a massive thing that helped me to get through it, because I was spending a lot of time on my own. So exercise was key. And throughout my life, I've kind of maintained a good level of fitness. And I always find having a focus such as exercise keeps my mind level and keeps me at a point where I've got a focus and a goal. So for me, what I do on a weekly basis to keep my mind healthy is that I write down things. So I set myself, say, monthly goals. So I want to achieve this by this time. So during the pandemic, especially, I said to myself, right, I'm going to learn to walk backwards. So that was one of my first things that I did. And I actually set up my my kind of bed. So I took my bedding and put it onto the floor. So when I did walk backwards, I had to kind of soft landing. But it was something that I gave myself a focus, and it was brilliant in terms of keeping myself healthy and having a focus with my mind. I think with mental health, it can be very difficult. So I've had my own struggles with mental health. So I've had a mental illness called body dysmorphia. So body dysmorphia is an illness where you look at yourself in the mirror and you see yourself differently to actually how you are in real life. So with me, I didn't see myself as fit and healthy. I saw myself as skinny. So I used to look in the mirror and not really like my body, but especially my legs. So what I would do, I would avoid wearing shorts. I would avoid taking photos that showed the lower parts of my body, and I became quite ill as a result. So for me, I had to switch my mind with my training. So when I was training to get my body as big as possible, to draw attention away from my legs, the bits that I was really self-conscious about. So I kind of I joined a boxing gym, and I joined with a personal trainer who was fantastic and had a real fantastic knowledge of disability, and he changed my mindset and changed it to performance focused. And what I meant by that is focusing on goals and not necessarily just appearance. It's about achieving to improve my lifestyle. So that completely switched my mindset, and it made fitness into a real positive thing, as well as social media, because social media became a very negative thing for me. So it had a real negative effect on my mental health. So I used to just upload photos of myself and hide my legs as much as possible. And actually being open like I am on my Instagram with my videos, showing myself how I am in real life, making it as realistic as and honest as I can be, has actually helped my mental health by getting a lot of the positive feedback and the huge following I've managed to gain in 2 years. And it's really helped me have a real positive outlook on my disability and my self-esteem. So self-esteem is really key to kind of accepting your disability. So for me, having a community, an online community that is really accepting of a disability and really supportive is really cool. Yeah, so that's kind of my background. In terms of what I do to keep my mental health at a good level, like I've mentioned before, exercise, meditation is really key. So if I've had a really stressful day, I'll go and do some exercise. I mean, sometimes you've had a real stressful day and you just want to go and sit down and just sit on your own by yourself, or sit and chill for a bit. But I found sometimes, even if you make yourself go and do those exercises and really motivate yourself and say, I don't want to do this, however, I'm going to do it anyway, really helps you to have that mindset of discipline, and really helps you to release those endorphins in your mind. So you've got that kind of positive feeling in your mind. So once you finish training, you feel really good. And I can honestly say, when I finish my training every night, I've never felt like, oh, I really regret doing that session. I feel 100 times worse. Fitness is key for real good mental health. I've always been really, pro healthy diet. So I make sure my diet is really, really good. So I have 6 days on, 1 day off a week. So that means I eat really, really well, really balanced diet, get my protein in and my vitamins and minerals, and the right balanced diet 6 days a week. And then I have my one cheat day or cheat meal a week, and that kind of helps me to stay positive and have a real good level of mental health. So I always find if I'm eating rubbish on a regular basis, day after day, it actually has a real negative effect on your mind. So you feel sluggish, you feel demotivated. I think if you're fueling your body in the right way. It helps you deal with the challenges. As you guys know, with cerebral palsy, life presents you with bigger physical challenges than most people. So giving your body a chance by feeding it with the right things gives you half a chance. So sometimes I'll wake up in the morning and my muscles are really tight because the spasticity in my muscles fluctuate from day to day. It's just what happens. So what I do, I get up, I do my stretches. I have to get up earlier than everybody else because I always have that priority. So I always do my physio. So even if I feel rubbish, I have to give my body a chance. So I do my physio, I have a really hot shower, and then I go downstairs and have a piece of fruit and some porridge. And I cannot emphasize enough, by the time I've done that, my body 9 times out of 10 feels good, feels positive, and I'm nice and loose. And for you guys with CP, it's so important you do that and you make time for yourself and you look after your body. I'd even say it's even more important than people that don't have cerebral palsy. It's so key. Meditation for me is another thing. So sometimes in the evening I'll just reflect. It doesn't have to be anything major, just reflect. And just after I work in a school, so I work with other disabled children, so that brings it challenges, it's stresses. So I come home and I give myself that time. So I come home and I do my workout at the gym, and then I give myself that time to reflect on my day. That's another thing I do, and I make sure I make time for. It's very important that you always schedule things into your lives. I mean, you guys might not agree with me, but for me, I get quite irritated when people say, "Oh, I don't have time for this." I always try and make time for myself, and that is key to being able to feel positive and feel good about yourselves. Yeah. The other thing I want to talk about, which I've slightly touched on, was how comparison can be quite dangerous, especially with people with physical disabilities. So for me, one of my coping mechanisms of dealing with cerebral palsy, because I'm not going to pretend it's easy in life to be able to do it, and it's very easy to compare yourself to the next man. So like you've heard me say briefly at the start, I have a twin sister. She's beautiful. She really is. She's lovely. She's very, very intelligent. She's brilliant. As a child, it was very easy for me to say, why me? Why me? And why did it have to be me? And look at my sister. She was in the same situation as me. She was born premature, but she's barely been affected by this. And it's me that's having to deal with this. And I don't hate to say it, but I almost resented her for it. And for me, as soon as I, stopped comparing myself to her and to other people, it kind of helped me to build those foundations to my positive attitude that I have now. So for me, I'm closer to her now than anybody in my family, just because I love her and I want her to do well, and I recognize that I'm in this position because I'm able to deal with it, and I've equipped myself to deal with it. And I think as soon as you stop comparing yourself to others, say sometimes I'm in the gym and when I first started, I was unable to do so many things. So I used to just do my basic exercises, my physio. I didn't touch the weights and do anything. And the reason why I didn't do that is because I can't do that because that big man over there that's really capable, I'll never get like him. I'll never be that way. And that is something that I've kind of got rid of in my mindset. So I've made sure that I don't do that anymore. And what I actually did is adapt my exercises to suit my needs and then build upon that. So, for example, I wanted to learn how to squat, and obviously with my balance limitations, that was extremely difficult. So I used to squat holding on to a chair. That was the first stage. And then I used to squat with support, so somebody holding me, for example. And then I slowly built up my strength and balance, and I went onto it's like a ramp, and it kind of gave me that incline to help me get deeper into the squat and keep the form. But I've got to the point now where I've slowly built it up, and I've managed to build myself to be able to do weighted squats. So I'm building that slowly. And my point is, mentally, the mental challenge to overcome that fear and stop myself comparing myself to other people and their capabilities was the main kind of the main issue there. I wasn't able to do it, not because of my physical limitations. It was more to do with, me feeling a certain way about myself. I can't do that. And I think it's very common in the disability community to say, I can't do this because somebody is too, it's almost that fear factor. And once you get rid of that fear factor and say, and change it into, I can do this, I've got these limitations, but what things can I change? What things can I adapt to make it so I can do this? And once you've achieved the small things, for example, in the last 2-3 years, I've learned to climb the stairs without holding on to a banister, and that sense of achievement has really, really improved my mental health, and I feel amazing every time I complete something. So you'll see my videos when I jump in the air. You always see at the end of the video I'm always smiling, and there's a reason for that. It's because I'm feeling real positive about what I've achieved, and I feel good and I feel real positive. I'm not going to lie, it's still difficult, but you've got to have that mindset to say, yes, I feel down today. However, I'm going to keep moving and keep moving forward. So yeah, that's what I would say. All right. Has anyone got any questions?
I'm just going to say to start with, unfortunately, for some reason, my keyboard in the chat is not working. It's my keyboard here. So if people wanted to type something, please don't think I'm rude for not replying back to you. Do we have any hands up for anyone who wants to ask any questions? I'm just going to have a quick look. I've got a few questions to kick off with.
Yeah.
The first question I wanted to ask you is, did you have anyone who kind of gave you that idea to start breaking things down into small groups, small goals, or like how did you come up with it to start with? Where do you start when you're in that sort of situation?
Yeah. So for me, I've always had the backing from my family. My family have been the key to pushing me forward and setting those goals. So that mindset comes from my parents. So my parents, as a small boy, kind of set those goals for me. And my parents kind of didn't treat me any differently, but they pushed me forward and said, right, today we're going to get Joe to try and achieve this, and say, there were long-term goals back then. So they were like, in 2 years, we're going to try and get Joe to learn to put his shoes on independently, or to get Joe to walk 10 steps without falling over. And I've kind of taken that upon myself into my adult life. It's almost like a transferable skill, if you like. So I've taken that my parents have taught me and transferred it from being a child to an adult. So I've just taken that skill upon myself to carry that on, really.
That's really interesting, and it's really, it's amazing that you've had such proactive parents with such a positive mindset themselves, because I know that a lot of a lot of parents, when they first had their children diagnosed, were given quite awful prognoses by the doctors. And you know, it's to the credit of the parents that sort of say, that's, I don't buy that. And
yeah. I mean, the doctors said to my parents that I would never walk, I would never talk, I would never be myself. So, you know, it's very kind of, you know, I understand that it can be quite disheartening, but I think, again, it's that element of, you've got to tell yourself you can do it, and you've got to kind of, yes, I've had that backing from my family and from the people around me, but it's taking it upon yourself to carry that on, even though it's hard, into your adult life. You've got to become, this sounds quite brutal, but I'm going to be honest, when you're 18, you've got to become the adult, and you've got to transfer those skills of what you've been, you know, if you've had that positivity, you've had that backing, you cannot rely on other people forever. Even if you are somebody with a disability, you've got to take it on yourself if you want to progress and if you want to stay positive. It's something that you have to kind of flourish in your own adult life, if you like.
Wow, that's really powerful, isn't it?
Sorry to be hard hitting, but it's something that is true. I think that a lot of people that have, you know, struggles, and not necessarily just disabilities, go, oh, somebody else will sort it, or somebody else will do it. And it's very easy to say, you know, especially 17, 18, oh, my mum and dad will sort it for me because that's what I'm used to. That, you know, I live independently, I have my own house, I work full time, I do this, you know, as my business. I'm helping other people with disabilities, you know, fitness and things like that. So that's all me being proactive, and it's all about being proactive and not having that kind of negative spin on your life, you know. And I believe you guys can do it. I do. And I believe everybody can do it no matter what. You've just got to change to suit your abilities, not necessarily just say, can't do it because of this. You've got to try and find a way forward, even if it's very difficult. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you.
That's all right. I know
Emma, you've got your hand up.
That's really hard to hear, guys, but it's true to an extent. All right.
Emma, would you like to ask something?
Yes, I do. I was just reading the chat. Wow. I love to hear all these stories where we prove everybody wrong. It just proves that doctors don't know everything. But anyway, I was just really interested. I think I'm slightly in love, Joe, because all of the things that you talk about in terms of making time for yourself is something that I am only just learning about now at the grand old age of 46. And I had more of the attitude that I had to keep going regardless, and that I couldn't show any weakness, because then people would, of course, she can't do it because she's got a disability. So I love hearing what you say. What I'm interested in is those mornings where you don't feel like getting out of bed so quickly and everything is very tight and very painful. And then you said that you do some stretching and you have a hot shower. What kind of stretches do you do that helps you?
Right. So really I focus on with cerebral palsy. It depends on where the brain injury is. So for me, it does affect the left side, and it does affect the lower extremities of my body. So specifically my hips, my hamstrings. So things that are key, hamstrings and calf stretches against the wall. I can help you guys by releasing some videos. I need to release some videos. So there's simple hamstring stretches, calf stretches. So even if the easiest way in the morning to stretch your calf out is it's almost like a calf raise. So you're going on the edge of a step, and you're almost, imagine this is your heel. So your heel is going down and it's going up again. So you're stretching your calf and it's stretching like this. So you hold it for 5-6 seconds, you bring it back up again. So that should give you a real good stretch. And the beauty of the stairs is that there's 2 banisters by your side, so you're balanced. You've got your 2 arms, and you're holding on, and you can do that really nice calf stretch there. That's another key one to do in the morning, as well. Just simple for me, and not many people know this, but it's actually one of my biggest limitations is this left hand. So a lot of it is the tightness in my left hand. Just simply just stretching out that hand, stretching out the arm, putting pressure through your thumb. I can't really show it on here, but what I'll do, I'll release some videos, guys. Just basic things. I've got to think, the muscles that I'm going to be using a lot today are my hands. So for me, believe it or not, stretching my fingers and my hands are a real priority, because I'm sitting at a desk a lot of the time in my day. I'm doing a lot of typing, and then if my muscles are too tight, it makes my job so much more difficult. So I focus on that. But yeah, that's what I do. I know that was not very informative. It's hard to explain. I need to.
No, I think that's perfect, and I think that there is in the chat, people are talking about motivation, and I recognise that it's really difficult to be motivated when you are in pain.
Yeah.
And you've got the whole day in front of you. So we're just interested in the sorts of things that you do to help you get up, make that first step.
This sounds really, really harsh, but I think there's a difference between motivation and discipline. And I think realistically, you're not going to be motivated every day. But there is a mindset where if you do have that mindset, you will be disciplined and you will do it anyway. And that is the mindset I've got into and managed to kind of reach to that point where even if I'm feeling terrible, I go anyway. And I know if I do these various steps, like do my physio, like, have a hot shower, like, do my workouts on a regular basis, come home, do my physio, these things will reduce the times you feel rubbish. They'll get less and less, but it's all about consistency. It's all about making sure that you're doing the right things. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy for everybody, because I do understand there's different extremities of cerebral palsy, and some people have that. I know this because as a child I had that pain. I had that stiffness every single day, every single morning. So I do understand and I do get it, but there is ways forward. But it's implementing those little things in your life that give you that state of mind and that positivity, because you're well equipped to have that positive mindset and that positive attitude to, yes, I do feel rubbish, but what can I do to resolve it and make it feel a bit better?
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Yes,
Yeah.
Xavier, go for it.
Hi. Hi, Joe. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I've been following your Instagram for a while actually, and I think it's really incredible actually what you're doing. So I have I have mild CP, fairly similar to you, I think, on the left side. And I exercise quite regularly, do all those things. But I think it's very inspirational to see somebody who, I assume you're a little bit older than me. I'm 23 now, but it's very inspirational to see somebody doing that, right? And exercising it and managing it, because something that I've always found, and I think I've been quite fortunate. I've never had too much pain, but something recently I've had quite tight calves, and I've had some problems in my Achilles tendons, and I don't know for sure, but it's probably linked to CP, right? So it's difficult to see how do you sort of keep positive and say how do you stay strong? So I think what you're saying is absolutely right around physio and exercise. And it's something I've been doing, and actually, dare I say it, I've been doing it more since I've seen your Instagram and other Instagrams around the importance of exercise. So I don't want to. That's all right, Jess. I don't want to talk for too long or sing your praises too much, but I think what you're saying is absolutely right, and I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. And I'm not saying my CP is the same as yours or anyone else on this this call, right? But I think what you're doing is absolutely right, and certainly something I've learned, which I think you've learned as well, is the importance of exercise and physio, and doing what you can. And I think that's really critical, and I found that really important for me. So I guess my question / message is, I say not really a question, it's more of a message, is just to say, I think you know, what you've done is great, and I think that's I think it's a highly motivational thing for CP, and dare I say it's helped me motivate myself. So thank you for that, because otherwise, I find it very hard to see necessarily people who are a bit older who are dealing with it. So that's great. So if that's all I'm going to say, that's what I'd say.
No,
so,
really appreciate that.
Yeah,
it means a lot.
That's all right. Yeah,
that's why I started off my channel, because of that, with that purpose in mind. So that definitely means a lot to me. Thank you.
No, that's fine. I mean, it's great because I think it's hard, isn't it? Because there's such limited medical and sort of academic attention given to CP, and very few people study it. So it's hard to know as you get older and you start to get these pains. How do you deal with it?
I think, sorry, man.
Go on.
I think with CP, like you said, it varies from person to person. And I think it's down to experimentation. So whatever feels good at the time. So that exercise didn't feel quite right. That exercise isn't right for me. What other alternatives can I find that do the same thing but feels more comfortable or less kind of limiting? So for me, for example,
absolutely,
squatting is something that I really struggle with, but there is ways around it, and I found a really good way of building myself up because I was born with very, very weak glutes.
So, I have quite weak glutes, weak glutes and weak calves, and which is some of the problems I have at the moment with my Achilles tendon thing. So so I think we've got commonalities there, and I think most of us would have some commonalities there. But I think that's absolutely right. And as I say, it's just good to be able to discuss this as well, because it's so hard to find people to discuss this stuff with. You kind of having to work it out as you go, right? So I don't want to take too much of everyone's time up. So I'll open it back.
I think with that, the reason it sounds really harsh, but I think because of the lack of kind of awareness and knowledge, right. I dare say.
I'm agreeing with you. I think that's absolutely right. I mean, the amount of physios I would see it's not their fault, but no one really knows CP, right? No physio or personal trainer, and that's fine because I can work with people and we can work around it. But no one knows it. So if I go to someone and say, my Achilles tendon's hurting, it's like, well, he's going to solve it. Anyway, I don't want to talk too long, so I'll let someone else.
It's fine.
Come on, but
I just want to add to what you said. I think with that, it almost makes us into resilient people. And
I think that's true. I think that's absolutely true.
Because you have to go it alone a lot of the time.
A lot of the time, not all the time, but a lot of the time, a lot of the time, and it's people clearly share that concern. I can't be the only one. Anyway, I'll let other people talk because I've spoken for a while. But no worries.
Thanks, Xavier. Hopefully we're trying to change things so that there is much more awareness and that there is the information growing. So, but it is really good to hear that there are people out there, and I think what you do, Joe, so amazingly is you're leading by example, and that's sometimes what we need. That's not what we need to be seeing. Is there anybody else that has a question for Joe?
I've got something that I want to take you back to expand a little, ask you to expand a little bit more on, Joe. You talked quite a lot about how, when you're not feeling in a good place and you do your workout, you get all those endorphins working, and it really makes you feel a lot better in the shower, etc. But you also mentioned meditation. Can you expand a little bit more on that? Because I'm just thinking it's not always easy for people to do the physical things without a lot of planning, but actually sometimes the sedentary things are a bit easier. So could you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. I for me, it's not, I think people think, meditation, he's sitting there with his hands together and kind of sitting in a spot and not moving. For me, meditation is, what I like to do is either just read basic things, or just read things that relaxes me. So, that would be, this sounds really, really boring, but I like to research my disability. I like to spend a lot of time reading and building up my knowledge, and that kind of relaxes me. And it also gives me, different ideas to kind of inspire. So, I haven't touched on this subject. I make notes. So I like to make notes on different topics I haven't spoke about. So for me, that is that time where I reflect and I think, and I have my time. So reading, making notes. Sometimes when I'm making notes, I can, I can write about what my day entailed. So what was good about my day, what necessarily, dare I say it, what went wrong? How can we change it? How can we make it so, sometimes you can't change, things that happen in the day because sometimes things get difficult, but how can we feel more positive about it? How can we change that mindset? So how can I reduce my stress levels? So staying calm, making the right choices by, not letting, you know, not letting other people's opinions affect you so much. Just think again, focusing on yourself, keeping it about what you have to do and not what other people think, and that's really key. And sometimes I'll come home, not very often these days, and I'm really frustrated, and I'll write down my frustrations. So it's very difficult with CP, and sometimes, dare I say it, I've been in workplaces where it's quite difficult, and even in school, and people don't take you seriously. And it's the facts of life living with disability, because not everybody takes it very seriously. And as an adult male, it's quite difficult, and almost like I've experienced something called positive discrimination. So for me, that really frustrates me. For example, oh no, Joe, it's fine. I'll do that. It's fine. You go and sit down. Yeah. And they think I'm helping. And that really, really kind of winds me up. And sometimes I have to walk away and think the way I think about it positively is that, yes, that proves that I've got things to do. So I've got a message to spread, a positive message. My role in life, why I'm here is to educate. And when things like that happen, what the example I've just given, I come away from that situation and think to myself, right, that means I've got a role to play in life. That means I've got to keep spreading the message and keep being positive about disability and getting, the awareness of cerebral palsy out there. So when I experience negativity in that way, it's very easy for me to just go, right, that's my positive spin on it. And that's how I've dealt with it in the past 5-6 years, where before, as a younger man, I would get very angry and very frustrated and just say, life's not fair. So if you ever, the best advice I can give you is to try and be positive about it and think, what can I do to change people's attitudes? Take it on yourself to feel good in a way, right, I can change it. I can change society. And that's what Miriam's doing. And the whole point of Up is to change. And I think what you guys are doing is great. And it's kind of similar to what I've just spoke about, changing people's perceptions. And that's what you've got to focus on.
Brilliant. Thank you, Joe.
That's all right.
I think that Dean has a question. I'm just going to Hi, Dean.
Yeah, I did actually. But while I was listening to Joe speaking, he answered the question, and only he spoke about sort of when he spoke about sort of not letting other people try and do things when people try and take over and do things for you, but you seem to have coped well with that as well. You seem to have got a good attitude to sort of dealing with that, because I suppose I've never really come across that so much, but I suppose it can be very frustrating. You're trying to do something, yourself, and you know how to do it, and you know the structure of how how to do that. Then someone else tries to come and take over. It's very frustrating.
Yes, definitely. What was your question? What was your question again? Sorry, sir. Was it how would I deal with it, or what was your question again, sir?
Yeah, well, no, it wasn't really a question. Really, it's just turned into a comment. Really, it's not really quick. really question. I mean,
Yeah.
just comment, because I mean, you answered the first question I had. So but yeah, so thank you. It's very interesting to. I know I've only been in for a few minutes, but very interesting to hear what you've been talking about so far.
That's no problem at all. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. Sometimes it gets that frustrating. It's very difficult to be positive. I'm not going to say I'm 100% positive all the time. Life doesn't work like that. But I think the majority of time, if you can kind of put a positive spin on it and think,
Yeah.
there's time for change, and there's time, and that's what I've focused on over the past 2 years, is promoting change towards every disability, not just cerebral palsy. And I think the problem is people think they're being kind by, like I said, trying to help too much, and I think it can be very demotivating. And that is, think about, I'm very, very motivated as a man. I'm very, very, but that is something that still kind of squashes me to a point where it does get me down sometimes, because not everybody in society has the same attitude towards disability. And believe it or not, it does make me feel anxious. And it does make me feel down. But I think the more you can talk about things and say, look, this happened today, I feel really annoyed about it. Talk to a friend, talk to a family member. Don't always just rely on yourself to deal with things.
Do you think then it's about thinking it through? Because that's what I do. When I get frustrated, and it's not that often I do, but when I do, I have to think about it, and it's sort of it's like a sandwich, or a beginning, a middle, and an end. And so you think about what's happened, and you contemplate. Yeah. And then you contemplate, and then you think, right, well, you think about, how do I end this sort of thing? How can this, and then move on from it, sort of thing.
But for me, the specific process is something that's negative that's happened. Hold on a second. Sorry. If something has upset you, my process is, I'll go away and think about it. I'll write my notes down. I'll have a think. I'll reflect, and then once I've kind of, got the points down that I wanted to kind of express, I'll go and express it to somebody that I love, maybe a family member that you can kind of discuss it through with, or even better, somebody that you trust that isn't necessarily going to be biased. So I go and discuss it, and then that process tends to calm me down. And I think something that's very difficult to accept is that you can't always deal with it straight away. Like you just said at the end, you go away and think about how you deal with it. You can't change people's perceptions overnight. It's something that has to gradually happen, and a lot of people have to be on board to do that. And especially with cerebral palsy, there's people like me, there's people like the organization up is, we all have the same goal, and everybody has to do it together, as a group of people, and that is key, I think. And it's hard to accept, but you're never going to remove positive discrimination, or you're never going to get rid of it. But I think the key is to look after yourself and kind of have that level of communication with loved ones, so it doesn't affect you and have a negative effect on your mental health. I think that's the key things to take away from it.
Yeah, I remember just one last thing, Joe, while you were just speaking. On top of that, what you just saying there. Last year, I was going through a very emotional time in my life, and I was just getting towards Christmas had come and gone, and I was just talking to my mum. My mum was just saying to me, she said, "How are things?" And I said, "You know what?" I said, "Things are getting better, but I just feel so empty inside," and I just burst out crying. I'm not a crier. I just burst out crying. And after that, after I've done that, I didn't feel that emptiness. That emptiness is more or less gone. And I think it's because I offloaded myself. When you said about a family member, and
Yeah.
transferring it to someone you love, a family member. And my God, that really helped. That really helped me, and that's so I echo your advice there.
That's really amazing. Yeah, that's really cool. I think not necessarily. Yeah, crying is great. That's another conversation. But I think being vulnerable, for example, from my experience, as soon as I was vulnerable about my disability, the more I could kind of feel positive about it. So sometimes in life, if you can be vulnerable and be honest about something, it's actually easier to handle and actually easier to cope with yourself, because it's easier to kind of compartmentalize it to make it something that you can deal with. So for me, so when I made that transition from being all closed about my disability, not discussing it, don't want to face it, but as soon as I faced it and was really almost excessively open about it, it helped me to accept it in my mind, and all my mental health issues like body dysmorphia, anxiety, just it all kind of disappeared because I've almost accepted it in myself, and it kind of obliterated all those problems. And I know that sounds really far-fetched, but that's exactly what the process was. All right.
Hey, could I?
Brilliant.
Do you want to ask? Sorry.
I just wanted to say, just on vulnerability, if anybody's and you're interested, Joe, in reading things, if anyone's read or seen Brené Brown, she does a pretty powerful TED talk and has written lots of books around the power of being vulnerable and vulnerability. I can post something about that too, because I think that's something that we haven't touched on over the weeks, but it's certainly something that is worth thinking about, and certainly something that's helped me. We've got a few people lined up to ask questions. So I think Xavier wanted to ask another one.
Yeah. Is that right?
And then Courtney, you've got a question, and Miriam's got another question. So I'll line them up. Joe.
I've got loads of time, so don't feel the pressure.
No, that's all right. That's cool. I've got to go in about 5-10 minutes. I'll make it as quick as I can. Yeah, the only one for me is, and that's okay. This is an awkward topic. It probably isn't, but I'm just interested in your experience around, and I've seen this a bit on your Instagram, around sort of relationships, dating, that sort of stuff, because I guess it's kind of related to mental health. And I'm just interested, what do you think around people's perceptions? Is that something you can manage easily? Is it difficult to manage? What's your view on that, right? I don't mean to be too intrusive, but just as a
no, it's fine.
You know what I mean? I've seen you mention it on Instagram, so yeah.
So for me, it's with relationships. The more kind of outwardly confident and genuinely confident I come across, the more successful I am in terms of having successful relationships. So it's not thinking, oh, I've got a disability, so I can't be with whoever I want to be with. It's about outwardly being confident and genuinely feeling a certain way about yourself, so you can appear, attractive to the opposite sex, and that's what is the key thing.
Yeah, no, I was going to say I completely agree, and I think confidence is key, because I guess I say we'll have, but I can certainly speak from my experience that lack of confidence is an inhibitor, and it's easy to see why you wouldn't be confident, right? Because you're not confident in yourself necessarily, or how you feel to someone else, right? So that naturally makes you feel nervous. Look, I totally agree. I think it's interesting you're saying a similar thing to what I'm saying, so I don't think I'm isolated in saying that, but I think that you're absolutely right. Confidence is key, and that enables you to try and work through it's a difficult thing for everyone, right? For anyone, right? That whole concept's difficult, but obviously I guess with CP it adds an additional layer of complexity, shall we say, to the process.
I don't see it that way. I see it as
you don't. That's good.
Individualism.
Well, I like that. I'm pleased that you say that, because that's the way I should think about it. Absolutely. Yeah. It's a case of not thinking there's a limitation. No, and that's what many people tell me. So I'm with you on that. But
a bit of key advice, and it's brutal. If someone can't accept you with your disability, they're not worth your time.
Oh no! Oh, Joe. I mean, I'm 100% with you on that one. I can speak experience on that one. Yeah. But no, what I would say is absolutely. I think you have to be open, but have a level of awareness that some people won't be accepting. That's
Yeah,
life.
yeah,
As with,
definitely,
as with everything, people aren't accepting it, but some people are accepting it.
some people don't like people with blonde hair, but there's
No,
nothing you
well,
can do
exactly.
about that. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
Some people don't like
Yeah.
people with I think that's absolutely right. I've had, I know it's a hard thing to get your head around. Look, but it sounds like you're getting your head around it right well, and so I think that's the sort of approach, right? Which is great that you say that, because it can be. I would say that's it can be something to struggle with.
Yeah,
Thank you,
definitely.
Xavier. I think I would just
Great.
also
So,
add, because
so, yeah,
we've had a month or two discussing relationships, is that that this idea that Joe brings up about being confident in yourself, I think that applies to whether you're able-bodied or disabled. I think sometimes we have to think wider than it's just about disability. It's about the confidence in yourself.
Completely. Sorry, one last thing I was just going to say. Is there any way we can connect with you, Joe, after this? Or I shared my Instagram, but is there any means of connection or being aware of each other?
Should we make a WhatsApp group? Should we do that?
Yeah, why not? Yeah. That's a good idea.
I'll leave that with you guys. I'm happy for you to share my number. That's fine.
Should I share my number and then someone can do that then? Would that be the best way to do this?
Maybe, Xavier, if you email us.
Email's better, that's fine. Yeah, I don't want to do anything wrong. No, that's
through
fine.
the website.
Through the website. Yeah, that's fine. No, I didn't want to start sharing.
That might be the easiest way to do it.
No,
and then we can follow that through.
So the email's on the Up Movement CP website. Is that right?
Yeah, correct.
Brilliant.
All right.
Thank you, Xavier.
And if you're not getting the newsletter at the moment, you can sign up for that while you're doing it as well.
I'll tell you what, I'll sign up to that and I'll also do that. There you go. But no, excellent. Well, brilliant. So I've got to go. But thanks, Joe. I don't want to hold everyone up. Thanks very much.
It's really nice to meet you, my friend.
Yeah, great to meet you. Great to you share commonalities, common experience.
Yeah,
so all right, have a great evening. But all right.
Take care.
So I think Courtney had a question. I will just, you can start asking your question, Courtney. I'll just find you so that I can spotlight you. It might take me a little while.
Hey, so it's not something that we have talked about here. That it's something that you talked about in one of your videos.
Yeah.
That I wanted to ask you about. That although they think you don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And it's about how cerebral palsy affects your emotions.
Yeah.
Because I did not know that at all. And I thought it was just me.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you I'm not surprised you're talking about it.
Yeah.
I really did need that in that time. Because I thought that I was the only one. So another way talked about it. No one really talked about it. And the fact that you did really help. And I'm also I'm still trying to, because with my palsy, I'm diagnosed with a learning disability, right?
Yeah.
On top, so I'm still trying to work out what, because when other people say to me, whenever I say to people that I've got a learning disability,
they make an assumption.
Or they are symptoms diagnosed.
Yeah. So believe it or not, people make assumptions about me as well. So sometimes they'll say, oh, that, especially people that don't necessarily know me or meet me for the first time, they'll make an assumption. So they'll speak to me in a certain way, or maybe a little bit.
I get that. Yeah. So they have cerebral palsy as well.
So they might be a bit condescending, and it's very difficult to try and handle. And sometimes it can be quite hard to kind of emotionally deal with it, like you were saying. But sometimes, like I said, society is very difficult, and it can be changed, and it needs to be changed. And there is work to be done. And unfortunately, people make an assumption. So, for example, with me, if I'm sitting in a chair, you can't really tell if I've got disability. So if I'm meeting someone for the first time, if I'm sitting, people will speak to me in a certain way, right? They speak to me like everybody else. But sometimes if I'm walking up to somebody, for example, and they can clearly see that I have some kind of physical disability, they might speak to me in a condescending tone. So I understand that can be really disheartening, and I've been there hundreds and hundreds of times. But sometimes you have to kind of just think, yeah, people don't understand. So I see it as my responsibility to try and educate them and say, look, I'm Joe. I've got cerebral palsy, and it affects me this way. So you kind of educate them and help them that way. That's how I try and see it. I know that's very difficult. And again, being open and honest about it and making it clear that this is how it affects you, and this is what you don't necessarily need help with this, but you need help with that, and being honest and clear. And I think over time people get to know you as an individual, and I think that's key.
Would you mind sharing? I know that Courtney said that you'd shared things about emotions on your Instagram, which is where her question came from. If you wouldn't mind, would you share what you'd said, or what prompted?
Can I get
Sorry, what do you mean? Sorry.
So Courtney said that on your Instagram you had shared how you felt that emotions were different for people with CP, and I just wanted to kind of
I'm trying to wrap my brains because I've posted so much.
It was about how the brain damage and the brain damage about your emotions. I'm going to find that video.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Hang on. It's so hard because I shared it and I tagged you in it, and now I can't find it. So
that's okay.
annoying.
Don't worry, Courtney.
I'm trying really hard.
It was ages ago though. DT, hang on.
Okay. While you're having a look, Courtney, I'm going to spotlight Francesca. I haven't forgotten about you, Miriam, because she has a question, and so does Mandy. So I'm just going to make sure that everybody gets to ask at least one question today.
Hi, Joe.
Hello.
First of all, I need to thank you because you opened me up to the CP online forums. I'm the nicest side of 40, and I didn't have anyone growing up that had, even at school, there was nobody with cerebral palsy. I was one of 1,000 kids that no one else was like me, etc. And I think it's, where did you find the confidence? I know you talked about during lockdown, you tried to change mindset, etc. And I'm entering the foray of social media and being open. I posted about taking my children to Lapland and trying ice skating and stuff like that. It's having that confidence to be honest about your limitations. And I think my question is being vulnerable but inspiring.
It's, for me, I think we just mentioned, you didn't go to school with people with CP, so I went to a mainstream school, so I went to the majority of my classmates were they didn't have disabilities, they were just so for me, almost as a child, I almost saw myself as one of them. I didn't see myself any differently, and I think that kind of gave me the foundation to kind of want to, I do feel the same as everybody else, and I still feel the same now. Even though I did obviously realize I was physically different, but emotionally I was the same as everybody else. And I think that really laid the foundations for my confidence levels. I feel, this sounds really arrogant, but I feel like my dad's a really good looking guy. and my mum is, and I feel confident in the way I look. And I know that sounds, but I'm being honest. It's something that I've really kind of, it's really helped me to feel positive about myself. And you know, it's something that it's a project for me, being able to work on myself, and you know, the confidence comes from my achievements. So the more I've achieved over time, the confidence builds. So the more I've kind of, you know, I've done milestones like buying a house, learning to drive, having a full-time job, just simple things that, you know, that everybody else does kind of takes for granted. And it's 100,000 times harder for guys like me, for people like you. It's so much more of an achievement, and that is where, you know, my confidence comes from, that I've succeeded and I've done well. You know, so that's probably the best way to answer your question.
You certainly deserve to be proud of yourself, Joe.
Thank you.
It's amazing what you've been able to achieve, and
Yes.
I think we've spoken in the past about showing the younger generations what we can achieve. I used to teach students with disabilities, and they always used to be surprised that I was a mom, I had a job, I could drive a car, I'd been to university, and I think it's a true testament to your character that you've been able to achieve things you want to.
Yeah, definitely. I think with me, especially the university comment, when I went to university, I think people, even now, when I say, oh, I've got a degree, and people are like, oh, really? Like, do you know what I mean? And that assumption that because you were different, because you were physically different, it means that you can't achieve, you know, high status things in society, and that's what they are, you know. So, you know, that's what we're trying to change. That.
Brilliant, thank you, Francesca. I'm gonna go to Mandy now, because she's patiently sitting with her hand up virtually.
Hi, can you
Hello.
hear me?
Hello, how you doing? You all right?
Good. I just want to say you're an absolute inspiration.
Oh, thank you very much.
How would I've never heard of you before, because I don't use Instagram, but are you on YouTube or anything?
YouTube? No, I'm going across to that. So if you type in, I'm in a few videos, so I don't have my own channel. So on YouTube, if you type in Joseph Bird, you'll find videos of me on the news, and you'll find videos of me with World's Strongest Man, and you'll find videos, I think, there are a few. So if you type in Joseph Bird, you'll see me on YouTube. All right.
Yeah, thanks very much. And I've got two questions. One is, have you thought about modelling?
Yeah, I have.
The other thing is, how do you manage fatigue?
How do I manage fatigue?
Like physical fatigue?
Okay, I'll answer the first question. So, for me, modelling is something I've been asked about to do and to sign contracts for. But believe it or not, it's something that isn't that close to my heart. It's about what it is for me. I mean, I know on my social media I try and promote positive body image, if you like. So for me, it's more about making people with disabilities feel like they can have the body they aspire to have, and they can feel good about their bodies. So for me, modeling is not at the top of my my kind of list of aspirations, if you like. It's something that I'm not going to say I disagree with it, but it's more about the inspiration I give to other people with disabilities to feel good about their bodies, and you know, to feel good about themselves. That's what it's about, not modeling, if you like. So what was your second question about fatigue?
Yeah, how do you manage it? Because I suffer from terrible physical fatigue after I do any physical activities. I've got terrible fatigue. And I don't know how to manage it.
Right. Okay. So it sounds really simple, but what you need to do is work out your limit. So, for example, if you feel like you're moving for 5 minutes and you feel really, really tired, yeah. So, what do you know? How long you can kind of do physical activity for before feeling tired?
It depends what it is.
Yeah.
But so I'm in the wheelchair most of the day.
Yeah.
But I can't use a relay. What's the word?
Yeah.
A relator. Is that the word? The walkie thing. And I can just walk for like wee short distances. But I feel like if I do any sort of physical activity, like filling up the washing machine with the clothes or emptying the dishwasher, I get really tired really quickly, and my muscles give in. If you know what I mean.
Yes.
So I just want to.
I've been there before. All right. So as a smaller child, I was like that too. So I think the key is to kind of find that threshold, if you like. So try and figure out what point are you going to get tired, and kind of give yourself regular rest breaks, if you like. So if you feel like you can do something for, say, 2.5 minutes, you do that for 2.5 minutes, and then you stop just before you feel like you're going to overexert yourself. And then over time, you slowly, gradually build it up and improve yourself. We're all about improvement. And I think knowing your own body and not pushing yourself too much so you feel you don't want to feel negative, and you don't want to feel like you're too exhausted all the time. And I think just knowing those little thresholds for every single activity that you do is so key. And then gradually just improving and building up, even if it's adding like 30 seconds each time. Yeah, I know it sounds strange, but it's knowing your body and knowing what you can do and not going past that point, being sensible. Yeah. And knowing your limitations, as well as, you know me, I'm always, people that follow me know that I push myself to the absolute max. But to get to that point, I've had to really slowly build things up. And it's taken 29 years of my life to do that. It's taken 29 years. And it's not been something I've done overnight. And I know it's different for you, it's different for everybody, but it's all about those small increments and knowing your body and knowing your limitations. All right.
Thanks very much. I'll give it a try.
It's all right.
Thank you.
No worries. No worries.
Fantastic, Joe. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think also sometimes when we look behind us, we see how far we've come, but when we're doing it day to day, it looks like really slow progress. So sometimes we have to look behind us and realize how far we've come. Miriam, you've got a question, and then I'll come to Ryan.
Oh, okay.
Just gonna add.
I think that what I wanted to, again, take you back a little bit, because there was like a bridge that I kind of feel I wanted to understand a little bit more, is that you said you started getting yourself really fit, but you also had this body dysmorphia issues where you didn't really kind of embrace, or you had a different distorted perspective of your legs.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's why you built that up. And then you talked about how you obviously started doing reflective diaries, and your journaling and reflecting on everything that you were doing. And then you built up that confidence to be able to share and speak about your disability, so that you didn't feel awkward about it. And you, therefore, it made other people feel less awkward, or it just allowed it to be talked about. But when you're because this is about positive mental health, we're trying to support positive mental health. Can you, like you've just beautifully, just as a physio, I just want to say, beautifully explored with Mandy how she can build up certain things. Are you able to take us back through those steps where you really had not a healthy relationship with your lower part of your body, and to where you are now, and maybe share some of that, because everyone, like you say, whether you've got a disability or not, everyone has different bits of their bodies that they maybe don't like as much.
Yeah. So I'll try and break it down. So it might be quite long, so just bear with me. So let me explain. With the body dysmorphia, it's something that's been it's one of the topics one topic I find not difficult to speak about. It's one of the very emotional things for me, because it is something that is very, very difficult to kind of explain and get people to understand, because with cerebral palsy, it was different in the way I'd look at myself and try and draw the attention away from my legs, because I hated it to the extent where I literally felt like I wanted to. It sounds very extreme. I'm going to say anyway, like literally I wanted to chop them off. That's where the mental space I was in. Okay, so for me, what I would do, I would literally build my arms up to the point where I would feel more comfortable not wearing a top than actually wearing a top, because I felt like people would be looking at my upper half more than my lower half. So I'll be honest with you, I still have that problem to a degree. So one of my main issues and insecurities is people in the street, that people are going to look and stare. So for me, it's like 80% there where I've kind of getting over it, and it still makes me fairly anxious when people kind of stare. So for me, it's a work in progress for me still. So that it got to the point where I literally didn't want to go outside. So I kind of built that from, making that transition from the image issues I had. It was more about the performance and how can I build my independence and improve my lifestyle, instead of my biceps are 3 inches too small, they need to be bigger. And it was almost the same mindset, but switching it from getting bigger arms to actually, I can balance, I can cook myself some dinner. So it's literally the same mindset, but it's a positive mindset. And it required quite a bit of counselling, and it required quite a lot of support from others. So it wasn't actually me that did the majority of the supporting. I needed a lot of support, and from counsellors and from my family, and it is something that I'm still working on now. So I wanted to be honest and say, we're 80% there, but it's extremely difficult to explain from a person that has cerebral palsy, because body dysmorphia normally is just somebody that looks at themselves in the mirror and sees themselves as something they're not. For me, it's more about trying to draw the attention away from my insecurities. So that would involve, for example, me wearing clothes that are really, really small. So I used to wear t-shirts that were like really, really small, because I felt like you could see my muscles and the people weren't looking at my legs, they were looking at my big arms and my tiny t-shirt. Yeah, you're have to excuse me, I've just got to charge my phone down flat. So yeah, what was the other part of the question, please?
No, I think you answered it really beautifully, and you shared with us the journey that you started taking, and first of all, just to say thank you so much, because it's a really personal thing. But I know that before we came on, you said there's nothing you're not happy to talk about. So I really appreciate it.
The thing is, well, I don't want people to think that it's been 100% me that's got me through my journey. It's through other people and support, and you should never be afraid to get support from other people and the people around you. And it's been so key for me to get that, and to kind of help me to get to a certain place where I am comfortable, so yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna leave it to to the next person as well, because I think Ryan's wanting to
Yeah,
ask.
so I'm going to just spotlight Ryan. And there we go. And Ryan, you can ask your question.
Hello, Joe.
Hello there. How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm great, mate. You enjoying it so far?
Yeah, mine's not really a question. I'm actually with a disabled modelling agency.
Right.
Called Zebedee. I've been with them.
They've offered me stuff before. Yeah.
Oh, have they?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been on Hollyoaks and everything before.
Yeah. Oh, good lad. Good lad. I like it.
And I've had a few photo shoots as well.
Right.
So I was just wondering if you'd heard of them.
Yeah, Zebedee. Yes, Zebedee or Hollyoaks. Which one?
Zebedee.
Zebedee. Yes. Yes, I have. They offered it me, but again, I'll be honest with you, it's not my priority. My focus is supporting other people and my fitness, and it's quite selfish in a way. And you know, it can be perceived that way, but for me, I think I have some strong. I don't want you to get. I don't mean this in an offensive way, but I have some real strong opinions on the modelling world, and I feel sometimes that they felt the pressure to change and to be more accepting. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but I think it's almost there's the pressure for companies and brands and modelling agencies to change their perception of disability, which is good. But sometimes I feel like it's forced because that people feel like they have to. So I work for a brand called My Protein, which I really love. I really love what they do, and they were, it doesn't feel like they've changed their kind of ethos, because to fit with the kind of the progression in society to accept disability, and I think it is great. I think it is brilliant, but again, there are some things that are quite difficult, and it's just my opinion in terms of, it's.
But I think, Joe, if I could, with my coaching hat on,
I don't want to be negative.
No, you're not. And I think what you're demonstrating is that in terms of mental health, if we're living within our values, and everybody has different values and different beliefs, and as long as we're true to our values and beliefs, then that really does also help to support our own mental health, whilst also be accepting of everybody else's values and beliefs are going to be different. So I don't think that you apologise for your own values and beliefs, as long as you're authentic to your own. And I think it's when we're not being authentic to our own values and beliefs that we feel this conflict, and that can also be a pressure on our own mental health. So I think that's an example of that. If I can take that tangentiary way, but that's how I'd see it as a life coach. So Joey's with us for another 3 or 4 minutes. Does anybody, before we say goodbye, is there anybody else that wants to ask a question or make a comment?
This is something that it's not really a joke question, that it might be a question for everyone. And could I help at a group for young people? How can we make accommodations and encourage people with disability to join in digitally? Because one thing we are seeing, and I don't know if this is why, that we are not seeing people with digital disability come. Is it because they don't feel like they can come, or is it because we are not doing enough to encourage that?
So what was your question about society and dating? Is that right?
No.
No. Courtney, what were you asking about? Why we're not seeing? Sorry, could you just repeat the last bit again?
So I work for a youth group, and we are helping encourage disabled youth to attend youth groups.
So it's about in Courtney's youth groups, they're not seeing people with disabilities to attending. What things can we do?
I think it's quite difficult really, because actually my degree was in youth work. So when I did my degree, I'm actually a trained youth worker. My degree is in youth work and education. So I've spent a lot of time in youth work and different youth settings. And I think for me, the key is to accept everybody, whether they've got a disability, what sex, gender, everybody is welcome. And that is key. That is key. And I think that whoever comes along, as long as we have an open mind to everybody. I think that's key with youth groups. I think it's quite difficult to focus on a specific group of people and encourage them. I think the key is to be open to everybody and welcome everybody in society.
Fantastic. And we have just we've got 1 more minute, so I'm going to squeeze in this last question. Somebody who arrived slightly late and that their microphone doesn't work, so I'm going to read it from the chat. Can Joe point to a turning point in the past when he decided to work on his body?
Okay. So I have this is very personal again. I really don't want. So I have this vivid memory of kind of sitting. So when the transition from my wheelchair to my frame was actually a toy horse with wheels. So my dad's a carpenter, and he made me a horse to kind of wheel around, to have wheels. It was rather large because it was quite big at that point. So he made me a horse with wheels, and I used to scoop myself around. And I was just having that overwhelming feeling of the transition from being in a wheelchair to having this horse, to actually moving on to, I mentioned this, it moved from a horse that I used to sit on to actually a shopping trolley. So I actually made that transition from a horse to walking in a supermarket, holding on to a trolley. So I actually decided to get my own shopping trolley that I used to wheel around everywhere, because it was that sense of independence that kind of gave me the bug, if you like, to progress from a very young age. So I almost became addicted to the feeling, the transition of progression, if you like. And that happened at quite a young age for me. So it's almost like a bug that I got, and a feeling that I'll never forget. And it's very hard to describe. I hope that makes sense and it answers your question.
I think there's a few people on the chat who someone else who had a horse on wheels, and somebody who remembers the brick trolley and using that. So I think your experience is similar to others. Well, Joe, I just wanted to say thank you very, very much. So much of what you said tonight resonated with me personally and with the conversations that we've had over the last few years. So thank you so much for all the work that you do.
Yeah, honestly, thank you, Sharon.
It's my pleasure.
Amazing.
It's my pleasure.
So I'm going to stop the recording now. Hold on.